My husband and his best friend tried to frame my brother. The motel receipt said split with Nick. I always thought the cracks in my marriage would show up as shouting matches or slammed doors. Instead, it started with something small, a missing ring. My grandmother's wedding band. The one she gave me before she passed. The one I promised I'd keep safe. I wore it often, but that week I had tucked it into my jewelry box because I was afraid of scratching it at work. When I opened the box on a quiet Tuesday evening, the velvet slot was empty. My stomach dropped, the way it does when you miss the last step on the stairs. I tore through drawers, checked the bathroom counter, even looked in the pockets of my jeans. Nothing. I asked Aaron, my husband, if he'd seen it. He shrugged like I'd asked about a missing sock. Maybe you misplaced it, he said, not even looking up from his phone. Something in his voice sounded rehearsed, like a line he'd been waiting to use. That night, as I scrolled through Instagram trying to distract myself, I paused on a story that made my skin crawl. Nick, Aaron's best friend, had posted a quick video from a bar. On the counter, next to his glass, was a tray of jewelry. The camera caught a flash of gold, a thin band with a notch that looked exactly like the one on my grandmother's ring. He tagged the location, a pawn shop bar hybrid downtown. I replayed the story 3 times, zooming in until the pixels blurred. I couldn't be 100% sure, but my heart already knew. That night, as Aaron slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and kept hearing Nick's laugh from the story. The same laugh I used to think was harmless. Now it sounded like someone shaking a matchbox. The next morning, I told myself it was silly to obsess over Nick's story. Maybe it wasn't even my ring. Maybe I was letting grief over my grandmother twist every little thing. But the doubt wouldn't leave me alone. It sat on my chest like weight I couldn't move. I decided to do something I'd never done before. I saved Nick's story. I knew stories vanished after 24 hours, so I took screenshots, frame by frame. The video was only 3 seconds long, just Nick laughing with a drink in his hand and that tray of jewelry under the bar's dim light. But when I zoomed in on the thin gold band, my pulse stumbled. It had the same notch, the same scratch I knew by heart. Still, I wanted proof. So I checked the metadata behind the photo. It wasn't hard. Nick wasn't exactly careful with his phone. I'd learned years ago how to look at details hidden in files. My hands shook as I scrolled through the location tag. It didn't just point to the pawn shop downtown. It showed something else too. The file had been created in Aaron's truck. My chest tightened. Why would Nick's phone show Aaron's truck as the origin? Unless Aaron had taken the photo first. Unless my husband had been the one holding the ring. The whole day I moved like a ghost through my office, answering emails, nodding at coworkers, while my mind replayed the possibilities. When I got home, Aaron was already there, sitting on the couch with the TV playing sports highlights he didn't even seem to watch. His phone rested on the arm of the chair, screen lit. I caught a glimpse of a text thread. His name at the top was Nick's. I swallowed hard and asked casually, "Did Nick stop by today?" Aaron's shoulders stiffened before he said, "No, why?" That 1-second pause told me more than the words ever could. Later, after he went to shower, I picked up his phone, guilt burning in my palms. The screen was locked, but the notifications bar hadn't cleared. At the top was a half-visible text from Nick. "Got it. She won't know." I nearly dropped the phone. My throat felt like it was closing. "She won't know." The words echoed in my head, wrapping themselves around the missing ring, the pawn shop story, the metadata. When Aaron came back into the room, towel around his shoulders, I couldn't look at him the same way. He sat beside me, close enough to touch, but I felt miles away. I wanted to scream, demand the truth, tear the mask off both of them. But a voice inside whispered, "Not yet." If they were willing to play this kind of game, I needed to know how far it went. That night, lying awake, I thought about Nick's hand brushing Aaron's shoulder at barbecues, about their private jokes that left me out, about how quickly Aaron had dismissed my missing ring. The cracks in my marriage weren't cracks anymore. They were fault lines, and I was standing on them, waiting for the ground to break. I decided to stop arguing with the knot in my stomach and watch instead. If Aaron and Nick were building a story for me, I would build one of my own. We have a family account for our phones, the kind that lets you see where your people are for safety. We set it up after a snowstorm last year, then forgot it existed. That morning, while Aaron made coffee and whistled like nothing in the world was heavy, I opened the app and turned location sharing back on for his phone. One tap. No password needed. It felt like opening a window to listen. All day, his dot moved like a routine. Office, lunch spot near the river, back to the office. Normal can be a disguise. At 5:18, the dot didn't head home. It drifted across town to a strip of businesses I only know from errands. A tire shop, a cheap motel, a bar with neon that never sleeps. The dot settled behind the motel like a cat hiding under a porch. 2 minutes later, Nick's Instagram posted a photo of after-work wings across the street. Same block, same time. The caption said, "Grind never stops," with a flex emoji. My hands went cold. The grind had never looked like a parking lot behind a motel. I told myself there could be a reason, any reason. Then I remembered the ring. I remembered she won't know. Reasons are easy to rent when you don't intend to keep them. At 6:41, Aaron's slid to the bar next door, then home. He walked in with the smell of fryer oil clinging to his hoodie, tossed his keys in the bowl, kissed my hair like a habit, and asked what I wanted for dinner. I said pasta. He said great. We cooked. We ate. We pretended we were the same people we were last month. After he fell asleep, I sat on the edge of the tub with my phone and went over the day like a teacher grading a paper nobody turned in. Motel, bar, matching posts. I took screenshots, labeled them with times, and tucked them into a folder that looked harmless. House projects. It sounds silly, but giving the evidence a safe name made me feel less like I was breaking and more like I was building. The next afternoon, I drove home early because I couldn't stand my own thoughts at my desk. On the porch, tucked under the welcome mat, was a crumpled receipt, the kind thin paper makes when it gets scared of rain. I picked it up without meaning to. My name wasn't on it. Nick's was. The motel's logo sat at the top, like a smirk. Room 214. 2 hours. Cash. The timestamp. Yesterday, 5:36, 7:38 p.m. My first thought was that the wind had blown it here. Then I thought about how wind doesn't slide receipts under mats. Wind is messy. This was neat. Like someone wanted me to trip over it. Like someone wanted a fight to start that wasn't theirs. That I stood in the doorway holding that paper while the old clock in our hall ticked too loudly, and the house felt like it was holding its breath with me. I wanted to call Aaron right then, scream into the phone, rip the curtain down. Instead, I took a picture, flattened the receipt inside a cookbook, and put the book back on the shelf with all the quiet I could borrow. That evening, Aaron texted, running late, with a smile face. Nick posted a photo from the gym. In the background, I could see the lobby plant from the motel. I knew those leaves now. It was like watching two people use the same mask and not notice it had a crack. When Aaron finally came home, he had that polite tired he wears when he wants me to stop asking before I start. He showered, ate, and fell asleep on the couch to the sound of a game he didn't care about. I sat by the window and watched our street grow dark, one porch light at a time. And I wondered how many neighbors had learned their own houses by looking at them from the outside. Just before midnight, my phone buzzed. Airdrop request from a nearby device. Room 214.jpg. My skin prickled. I accepted before fear could make me cautious. The photo popped open. A table, 2 takeout boxes, a thin gold band beside a ketchup packet. The angle was low, like someone placed the phone on the bed to take it. In the mirror, half a shoulder. And on the nightstand, Aaron's truck keys, the leather key fob I bought him 2 Christmases ago. I didn't cry. The tears were stuck behind something bigger. I saved the image, turned off my phone, and looked at Aaron sleeping a few feet away, open-mouthed. The way you sleep when you don't think anything can reach you. That I couldn't tell if I felt more betrayed by the room or by the friend who kept the door open. Morning would come either way. I decided it would find me ready. The next day I drove across town, my hands tight on the steering wheel, to the little pawn shop bar Nick had posted about. From the outside, it looked half-forgotten, faded sign, dusty windows, a neon beer light flickering even though it was morning. Inside, the air smelled like old wood and fried food. A glass case stretched along the counter with watches, chains, and rings resting in scratched velvet trays. I leaned over slowly, pretending to just browse. And there it was, my grandmother's ring. The thin band with the notch I knew as well as my own reflection. My heart beat so loud I thought the man behind the counter might hear it. He asked if I was interested. I smiled and said I might come back later, but I asked for the little slip of paper they keep with each item. He handed me one. On it was a number, a date, and the words "hold until cleared." That was all the proof I needed. I snapped a photo of the slip when his back was turned and walked out before my knees gave way. That evening, I came home and placed my keys down as calmly as I could. Aaron and Nick were already in the living room, laughing too loud at something on Nick's phone. They looked up like kids caught sneaking candy. Nick smirked and said, "Rough day?" His voice was casual, but his eyes flicked to Aaron's before coming back to me. Something passed between them, like a signal. Later, while Aaron was in the shower, Nick sent me a message. A photo. It showed my younger brother's car parked behind a building, with a woman slipping inside. The message read, "Maybe your family isn't as loyal as you think." I stared at the picture, anger rising like fire. They wanted me to think my brother was hiding something. But I know that car. I know where he parks. And I know my brother. Something about the angle of the photo, the lighting, even the ground. It all looked familiar in the wrong way. I drove by his place that night. His car was there, untouched, where it always sat. No strange shadows, no hidden secrets. When I looked closer at the photo Nick had sent, I noticed a reflection in the corner of the window. A truck mirror. Aaron's truck mirror. The lie was sloppy, but dangerous. They weren't just stealing from me now. They were trying to make me doubt the only people left I could trust. That I sat in my kitchen. The house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Holding two truths in my hands. My ring was sitting in a pawn shop. And the men who were supposed to be closest to me were building lies big enough to crush my family. And I realized they were desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Morning made me brave. I pulled out the small velvet envelope where I kept the appraisal note *** my grandmother had tucked in years ago, with a tiny photo of the ring and her neat handwriting. "For Jenna. Keep it close." I slid that note into my bag, took a deep breath, and drove back to the pawn shop. The place felt colder than yesterday. The same man stood behind the counter, eyes tired, kindness buried under habit. I set the note down, placed my ID beside it, and said, steady as I could, "That ring is mine." He studied the paper, then the little photo, then my face. The seconds stretched. Finally he nodded, took out the tray, and laid the ring in my palm like a small, warm truth. I signed a simple form. He made a copy for the file. No arguments. No story. Just a thing going back to where it belongs. I in the car. I slid the band on my finger. It fit like the house finally locked again. At home. I put the ring in a teacup on the kitchen shelf where my grandmother used to hide spare pins. Not in the jewelry box. Somewhere it could watch us. Aaron texted he'd be home early. Nick texted too. Dropping by tonight. Of course he was. I wiped the counters, set out 2 glasses, and tucked my phone behind the row of cookbooks with the voice memo running. Not fancy, just a quiet ear. I told myself I wasn't spying. I was done being talked around. They came in together like they'd practiced the doorway. Nick laughed too big. Aaron kept his arms too loose. I asked if they wanted water. They said sure. We stood in the kitchen with the kind of silence that makes sound seem rude. Then my own name broke the air from the living room. Low and mean. "Jenna's getting nosy." That was Nick. "Then keep your story the same," Aaron said. "It was her brother. We saw him. We helped cover so she wouldn't spiral." "Right," Nick said, "one story. No slips. If she asks about Tuesday, it was wings." They clinked bottles like that counted as a plan. A chair scraped. A phone buzzed. Papers rustled. Nick's voice again, lower now. "We're good on the cash from the other pieces?" "Yeah," Aaron said. "One more drop, and we're even. After that, nothing else from the house." I mean it. From the house. My hands went cold around the dish towel. The room picked a side. The hum of the fridge sounded like anger. I stepped into the doorway, heart steady in a way it hadn't been for days. I didn't shout. I asked if they'd seen the sunset. It painted the street pink. It hid the storm in my chest. They glanced at each other the way boys do when a teacher walks back into the room. Nick left first, fast and friendly, a smile clipped short. Aaron kissed my temple like a stamp and said he was tired. When the door closed, I took my phone from the cookbooks and pressed stop with a thumb that shook only after the click. I made tea I didn't drink and played the recording back once, just enough to hear the words I needed to hear. Then I saved it and sent a copy to my email labeled grocery list. Let them try to tidy the shelves. Some items will never fit back in the bag. I climbed the stairs and paused at the bedroom door. Aaron snored softly, the sound of someone who still believes he can sleep through floods. I watched him and felt 2 things at once. grief for the life we almost had, and a sharp, bright line for the one I was about to choose. Downstairs, I set the ring back in the teacup. It gleamed like a small, stubborn lighthouse. Morning would be different. In the morning, I set the table like it was any other day. 2 mugs, 1 spoon, the sugar jar halfway full. Then I placed my grandmother's ring in the middle, plain as sunrise. When Aaron came into the kitchen, he froze. His eyes went straight to the ring like a kid staring at a fire alarm that I didn't make a speech. I asked 3 small questions. Where did you see this last? Who touched it besides me? Why was it at a pawn counter under your friend's laugh? He went for the easiest life first. You must have found it. Then he tried a second one. Nick grabbed it by mistake. The third came out too fast. We were helping your brother. He stacked them like cups, hoping one would hold water. They didn't. I slid my phone across the table and tapped play. His own voice filled the room. The words from last night about cash, about one story, about wings. He looked smaller by the second, as if the chair had learned something about him and didn't like it. I want the truth, I said. Not the story you two practiced. He rubbed his face and stared at the floor. It got out of hand, he muttered. Nick was short on money. I thought I'd borrow. Just until payday. Borrow from my dead grandmother? The spoon in my hand touched the mug and made a sound that felt like a nail in wood. He flinched that I didn't wait for the next excuse. I texted my brother. If anyone sends you photos about you cheating, it's a setup. Don't answer. Call me. Then I texted Mom the same warning. Lies starve when families share plates. Not 5 minutes later, Nick tried again. A new photo landed in my messages. My brother's car, the same angle as before, a woman walking past. The caption, thought you should know. But this time, they made a lazy mistake. In the corner, shiny as a confession, sat a truck mirror with our neighborhood sticker on it. The little blue badge we all got at the block party. You only get that sticker by living on our street. And guess who never removed his? Aaron. I walked to the window and looked at Aaron's truck. The blue sticker stared back from the glass like a witness that had been waiting for its turn. I held up my phone, zoomed in on the reflection in the photo, then turned the screen so he could see. You two are framing my brother, I said, each word slow enough to stand up by itself. And you're doing it so badly you left our own sticker in the shot. His face went slack, like the part of him that kept the lies lined up finally got tired. Nick said it would make you back off, he whispered. He said if you got mad at your brother, you'd stop digging. So he told you to point a gun at my family, and you pulled the trigger. I picked up the ring and closed my hand around it. It felt warmer than the room that he tried to reach for me. I stepped back. You're going to make 2 calls, I said. One to that pawn counter, to list every item you brought in. One to my brother, to tell him what you tried. And then you're going to pack a bag. His jaw worked like he wanted to fight and didn't know with what. Where am I supposed to go? Anywhere that isn't this kitchen. He stared at the ring, at me, at the door. Finally, he nodded like a tired child, not a husband. I'll call. He said that. I texted Nick one line. Do not contact me again, and blocked him. Then I sent the ring's photo to my mom with a different kind of message. It's home. Aaron made the first call on speaker. The man at the pawn shop read off a short list. A bracelet, 2 earrings, a watch band. My chest pinched, little things I had loved because they were mine. Aaron said he'd come by. The man said, bring cash. The second call was worse. My brother answered on the second ring. Aaron told him everything, voice small, words tripping. My brother listened, then said, quiet and even, you don't get to use my name like that ever again. He hung up. A clean end. Aaron packed with the door open. No slamming. Just zippers and the sound of someone who finally knows the house is done believing. When he left, the air changed. It wasn't lighter. It was clearer. I set the ring back in the teacup and sat at the table until the sun moved across the stove. The house was quiet in the useful way. I made a list. Call the shop, check the drawer for missing pieces, send the audio to a safe place. Change the locks, tell the neighbors the truth. Rules, not feelings. Habits strong enough to hold me up. My phone buzzed once more. A new number. No name. One sentence. You'll miss him. I looked at the ring and then at the door. Maybe, I said to the empty room. But I won't miss being lied to in my own kitchen. I stood up and chose the next right thing. I started with the list and didn't let feelings argue. First stop, the pawn shop. The same bell on the door, the same smell of fryer oil and old wood. I laid cash on the counter and asked for everything the man had read off the day before. He brought out a small tray like a plate of apologies, my thin bracelet, the mismatched earrings I used to wear on Sundays, the watch band with the tiny scuff only I would notice. I didn't smile. I just nodded, counted, and put each piece into a small zip bag I'd brought from home. Anything else come in from the same person? I asked, keeping my voice even. He tapped a clipboard. That's all on the ticket. He hesitated. Lady, whatever this is, close your doors. I am, I said, and meant it. Back home, I set the jewelry on a tea towel like a tiny ceremony, then called a locksmith. He changed the front, back, and garage locks, handed me 3 keys, and said, "New start," like a man who's seen 100 of them. I added an entry code only I know and moved the spare key from the fake rock we'd used for years to a place only my mother will hear about. By noon. The group text with our friends lit up, memes, sports, the usual noise, then a private ping from Kara, who's always been closer to Nick than to me. Nick says you're overreacting. He was just helping Aaron. Maybe talk it out. I stared at the message and felt the old urge to soften. Then I remembered the blue sticker in the photo and the ring in my teacup. I typed slowly. He took my grandmother's ring. They tried to frame my brother. I heard them plan it in my living room. I'm done. I left it at that. No extra details to barter with. A minute later she replied with a single heart, and here if you need anything. The chat went quiet after that. The kind of silence that means people are talking somewhere else. Nick tried a different door. Tom, a mutual friend, called just to check in, and somehow said Nick's name every third sentence. I told him the truth in 3 lines and asked him not to pass messages between us. He said he understood. I believed him enough for today. I spent the afternoon doing small things that make a house loyal, washing the tea towel, putting the bracelet where it belongs, writing down account numbers for the utilities in my own name, taking a photo of the new keys and texting it to Mom with a single word, safe, just before dinner. An email slid into the inbox I share with Aaron for bills. Subject line, "Thank you for your stay." I clicked. It was a receipt from the motel, check-in and check-out time, Aaron's name, and, under notes, a single line that made my hands go cold and steady at the same time. Split with Nick. No arguing that. No story that could wash it clean. It was right there in gray text like a stain that refuses to fade. I forwarded the email to my own address. Then to a new folder named Next Steps. I sat at the table with the ring in its teacup and let the quiet settle. The house felt like it had moved to my side, floorboards included. I brewed tea, the kind my grandmother kept for days that need deciding, and wrote one more list. Close the joint bill account, separate phones and streaming. Call a counselor for me. Not for us. Drop the recording and receipts with a lawyer if he fights ugly. Tell my brother I fixed the story with facts. My phone buzzed once. A number I didn't save. You can't shut me out of my own friends, Nick wrote. We all know what your brother did. I typed one sentence back. I have the motel receipt with your name and Aaron's notes. Split with Nick. Don't text me again. I hit send, then block, and felt something in my chest unlock. I carried the tea towel to the sink and washed it again. Just because I could. Clean is a choice you keep making. When the sky turned the color of a bruise fading, I stood at the door and turned my new key twice. The clicks sounded like a promise that I spent the morning closing doors that should have been closed a long time ago. I moved the bills out of our shared email, changed the login on the power and water, and put my phone back on my own plan. Each switch felt like turning a lock. Then I booked a 1-hour consult with a local attorney. I brought a neat folder, the photo of my ring in the pawn case, the shop slip with the hold until cleared, the motel email that said split with Nick, and the little voice note where Aaron and Nick talked about keeping one story. I didn't ask for a war plan. I asked what to do so this mess wouldn't cling to me. Back home, Aaron texted, "Please, one more chance." I answered with conditions I could live with, not feelings I couldn't trust. Bring back everything you took. No excuses. Write a short statement to my brother owning what you and Nick did. Find a place to stay. Tonight. No back and forth. He typed, "Okay," and then nothing else. I made soup because chopping keeps my hands busy. The house was quiet in that solid way again. Then the mail came. A white envelope, stiff, with my name typed like a stranger had said it. Inside was a notice. Nick had filed a report saying I stole his property, jewelry, and harassed him. A copy of his list was stapled to it. A bracelet, mine. A watch band, mine. 2 earrings, mine. And a line at the bottom. Gold family ring, unclear ownership. My chest heated like a stove left on. I called the number on the notice, voice level. The officer on desk duty asked if I had receipts or proof the items were mine. I told him I had my grandmother's note, the tiny photo of the ring, the pawn slip number, and a recording from my own living room. He said, "Bring what you have. We'll add it to the file." An hour later, I was at the station, folder in hand. Officer Reed, different name, same steady tone as the one who'd helped Mrs. Klein in another life. Looked through each page without rushing. He tapped the motel email, nodded at the pawn slip, and listened to 30 seconds of the voice note. "This isn't a he said, she said," he said. "This is a paper path. Keep every scrap." On my way out, he added, "If anyone tries to show up at your house, call us. You have a right to peace." When I got home, a text from an unknown number waited. "Return what you took from the bar, and we'll drop it." The boldness made me laugh once, a short, sharp sound. The bar. They couldn't even keep the setting of their own story straight. That I put the kettle on and wrote one more list on a sticky note. Send copies of everything to a cloud folder and mom. Call the pawn shop and ask them to note the ticket as returned to owner. Email officer Read the motel email and the photo of the ring in my hand. Yes, the water boiled. Aaron stepped in the door with a shoebox. He set it on the counter and lifted the lid. Inside were little things I recognized. The Sunday earrings, the scuffed watch band, a bracelet that had lived in my top drawer for years. He kept his eyes on the box. "I'm sorry," he said, voice small. "I wrote the letter to your brother." He slid a folded page across the counter. It wasn't long, but it used the right words. "I did this. I'm sorry. I won't use your name again." I took the letter, scanned it with my phone, and texted it to my brother. He replied with a single thumbs up and nothing more. "I didn't need more." Aaron asked, "Can I talk to you?" I shook my head. "Not now." He nodded like he'd practiced it. Then he took a bag I hadn't noticed by the door and left without a second look. The door clicked. The house chose a side again. That night, the porch stayed lit. I sat at the table with my ring in its teacup, my folder by my elbow, and a calm I hadn't felt in days. Then my phone buzzed one last time. A picture. The outside of the motel. A warm filter to make it look friendly. And a caption, "You can't win this." No name. But I didn't need one. I replied with a single photo. The motel receipt with split with Nick. Then I wrote, "Daylight wins. See you there." And I sent a copy to Officer Reed that I wasn't chasing anyone in the dark anymore, that I spent the morning making neat piles on the dining table. Ring photo, pawn slip, motel email, the voice clip, Aaron's letter to my brother. I slid everything into a simple folder and drove it to the station. No speeches, just paper that didn't shake. Officer Reed met me with a calm that helped my lungs remember how to work. He copied each page, asked 3 short questions, and said, "Thank you for bringing this in clean." Clean. That word felt like a hand on my back. By afternoon. Word had leaked the way it always does in small circles. A mutual friend texted that Nick was showing proof and playing the victim. I told her I had already given the real proof to Reed and added, "Please don't carry messages for him." She sent back, "Got it." One less door for him to knock on. Just after 5, Reed called. "We asked Nick to come in and tell his side," he said. "He brought a picture he claimed proves you took the jewelry." I braced for some new trick. Then Reed added, and I could hear the almost smile in his voice, "It shows a reflection in the glass. A truck mirror with a blue neighborhood sticker, the same sticker on your husband's truck. Same corner, same crack in the mirror." I closed my eyes and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "So he brought you a picture that proves your story," Reed said. "We kept a copy." I thanked him and hung up, then stood in the kitchen and watched the last of the sun smear gold over the sink. For the first time in weeks, the light didn't feel like something I had to fight to keep. My phone buzzed again. "Kara. He's melting down," she wrote. "Says you ruined his life." I typed back, "He did that. I just turned on the light." She didn't argue. That evening, I carried the teacup with my grandmother's ring to the living room and set it on the coffee table like a little flag. I called Mom and my brother on speaker, told them the update in plain sentences. No drama, just the shape of what happened and what happens next. Aaron is out. Nick is blocked. The rest belongs to daylight. When I hung up, a message from an unknown number popped through. "You made this bigger than it had to be." No name, no courage, I didn't reply. I saved it under noise and left it there. A half hour later, Aaron texted me a photo of a key on his palm. Leaving the spare under the mat like you said, he wrote. I answered, don't. Hand it to me or to read. He showed up 10 minutes later, eyes tired, hair damp from a shower somewhere that wasn't our house. He held the key out. I took it without brushing his fingers. I'm sorry, he said. I know, I said. It still happened. He nodded. Nix. Not who I thought. Neither are you, I said, and that was the end of it. After he left, I stood at the window and watched a neighbor walking her dog. The porch lights blinking on one by one like the block was agreeing with itself. I made tea. I wrapped the bracelet around my wrist. I put the earrings on just to hear that tiny click. Little sounds that said, mine. Before bed, Reed texted one last time. Nick won't be contacting you, he wrote. If he does, call me. A clean line. A real door that I slept with the bedroom window cracked open and the new lock set. The house didn't creak like it was worried. It hummed like it knew my name again. In the morning, I would close the last shared account, book a few counseling sessions for me, and bring cookies to Mrs. Klein because kindness is another kind of lock. Then I'd write one page for myself about the week I learned the difference between love and loyalty. And after that, there was one thing left to do. Say goodbye to this story in a way that didn't break me. That I didn't plan a speech. I packed a small box with the things that still belonged to me in name and in feeling. Cookbooks with my notes in the margins. The chipped mug from our first road trip. A photo of my grandmother smiling like she knew I'd make it through any weather. I left the furniture. I kept the ring on my finger. Aaron came by in the afternoon to pick up the last of his clothes. No shouting. No smoke. We stood in the living room that had been ours and wasn't anymore. He said, I wish I could take it back. I said, you can't. You can only stop. He nodded. We didn't hug. He left the spare key on the table like a quiet apology and walked out into the kind of sunlight that doesn't help you hide. I took a long walk around the block. Mrs. Klein waved from her porch. I set a plate of cookies on her steps with a thank you note that simply said, for every time you turn the light on. On the community board by the mailboxes, someone had pinned a sheet of paper with a crooked piece of tape. Neighborhood rules. 6 lines. Familiar and stubborn. Check in on each other. Keep porch lights honest. Don't carry gossip. If it feels off. Say something. No extra keys under mats. Daylight beats drama. I added a 7th in my head. What's yours stays yours. At dusk. I called Nick's mother. She'd always been kind at barbecues. The sort of woman who brings extra napkins without asking. I told her the truth in soft sentences. About the ring, the motel, the trick with my brother's car. She sighed in that old, tired way mothers sigh when they already know. Thank you for telling me, she said. I'll handle my side. You handle yours. We said goodbye like people who understand that love and loyalty aren't the same thing. Back home, I sat at the kitchen table where the week had tried to swallow me and wrote a letter to myself. Not to the version of me who cried on the bathroom floor 3 nights ago, and not to the version who wanted revenge. To the one who locked the door, kept the proof, told the truth, and chose peace. Jenna, keep the small habits. Answer calls in daylight. Trust your list more than your panic. And listen for the sound of your own name when the room gets loud. If fear knocks, check the peephole. If shame knocks, don't open it all. Family is people who protect your soft parts, not people who borrow them. Wear the ring because it's a story you survived, not a promise someone else broke. Love, May folded the letter and tucked it behind the teacup where the ring sleeps when I don't. Then I slipped the ring onto my finger and felt the metal warm to my skin. It didn't feel like a weight anymore. It felt like a border, clear and kind. Before bed, I taped a new card to the inside of the front door, where I'd see it every time I left the house. Tell the truth once. Leave if it isn't heard. Keep what's yours. The night air was cool through the window. Somewhere down the block a dog sighed the way dogs do when the world is finally boring again. I turned the locks that now knew my hand, set the mug right side up on the porch, and turned off the light because I could. In the morning, I'll take the bracelet to be polished, call my brother to talk about anything but this, and make the kind of breakfast that sticks. The house will smell like coffee and toast, not like secrets. I'm not waiting for a message that explodes when I open it. I'm not twisting myself around someone else's story. I'm not guarding a door that was never mine to hold. I kept the only things that mattered. My name, my rules, my porch, my ring. This time, kept for me. Thank you for watching this story on True Tales Hub. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story that we post new tales twice a day, and each one comes with unexpected twists you won't see coming.